This was addiction by design. I call it murder. Parents' anger as Zuckerberg faces court. The Facebook founder has appeared in front of a jury for the first time, responding to the allegation that he put profit over the health and well-being of children. Grieving parents awaited Mark Zuckerberg's arrival at a courthouse in downtown Los Angeles for what is being called the social media industry's big tobacco moment. I'm comforted by the fact he's here alone, with only his lawyers and a jury. He's without his lobbyists or his PR machine, says Lori Schott, whose 18-year-old daughter Annalie had a social media addiction and died by suicide in 2020. If we would have been here in this court 10 years earlier, she would have still been alive, she adds. They knew what they were doing. Lori tells me how Annalie, who she describes as the central cog of their family, grew up on a farm in rural Colorado, but an interest in rodeos and horses was superseded by addiction to social media. On TikTok and Instagram, she would use beauty filters, says Lori, and compare herself to other girls. Annalie's anxiety and depression grew, and she even viewed a live suicide video online. The social media companies, knew what they were doing, says Lori. They did it for profit motives, and it's got to stop. Our children deserve to take control of their own digital footprint. My daughter shouldn't have had content pushed at her that said she was ugly, or her life had no future. This was an addiction by design. Metrics were set on increasing usage. Some call it capitalism, I call it murder. Lori argues social media platforms are inherently addictive and that the addictive nature of them has led to a host of personal harms. That is also the allegation being made by the plaintiff in this case, a 20-year-old, referred to in court as Kaley GM. She became an Instagram user aged 9 and developed an addiction to many social media platforms. Kaley GM suffered from negative body image, anxiety, and depression, her lawyers say. TikTok and Snapchat have both reached settlements in the lawsuit, leaving Meta and Google as the remaining defendants. Zuckerberg draws the crowds. Kaley GM's is the first of 9 separate trials in Los Angeles by 9 different plaintiffs who claim that when they were minors they became addicted to social media and suffered varying harms. Mr. Zuckerberg, the CEO of Meta, which owns and operates Facebook and Instagram, was appearing in front of a jury for the first time, responding to the allegation that he put profit over the health and well-being of children. He arrived at court flanked by bodyguards and sat nervously as he waited to take the stand. When he testified, the plaintiff KGM was sitting directly in his eye line, but he never looked at her. He nodded at the 12 jury members as they made their way to the box. The interest in this case is so massive that the court held a lottery to determine who would win a seat in the public gallery to see Mr. Zuckerberg. Raffle tickets were drawn, and even some of the bereaved parents who traveled across the country to be here for this watershed trial were not allowed inside the room. The plaintiff's lawyer, Mark Lanier, focused on Instagram's stated policy of not allowing under-13s on the platform. Mr. Lanier argued that not only did Instagram know there were users under 13, but the company aggressively sought to recruit them to the platform. On 3 screens inside the courtroom, he displayed an internal meta memo from 2018. "If we want to win big with teens, we must bring them in as tweens," it said. "We have definitively established tweens as the highest retention age group in the US. But Mr. Zuckerberg bristled at the suggestion that Instagram is designed to be harmful to children. "I'm focused on building a community that is sustainable," he said. "If you do something that's not good for people, maybe they'll spend more time on Instagram short term, but if they're not happy with it, they're not going to use it over time. I'm not trying to maximize the amount of time people spend every month." He sparred with Mr. Lanier, repeatedly accusing him of mischaracterizing his testimony on the stand and previous statements he had made to Congress. There was no gotcha moment with Mr. Zuckerberg, and there is still plenty more testimony to come. But if the plaintiff in this lawsuit is successful, there may be thousands more similar cases waiting in the wings. It could drastically alter the way the social media industry operates. Outside a courthouse in downtown Los Angeles, grief gathered before sunrise. Parents stood in a loose line, clutching photographs instead of placards. Some had traveled across states, some across years of unanswerable questions. They had come for a moment many of them once believed would never arrive, To watch Mark Zuckerberg walk into a courtroom and sit not as a titan of technology, but as a defendant before a jury. They call it the social media industry's big tobacco moment. Inside, the air was clinical and controlled. Outside, it trembled with memory. Lori Schott waited among the crowd. Her daughter, Annalie, died by suicide in 2020 at 18 years old after struggling with what Lori describes as a social media addiction. Annalie had grown up on a farm in rural Colorado, surrounded by sky and horses and rodeo dreams. But the wide-open spaces of her childhood were slowly replaced by glowing screens and algorithmic feeds. On TikTok and Instagram, Lori says, her daughter used beauty filters and compared herself relentlessly to other girls. Anxiety tightened its grip. Depression deepened. At some point, Annalie watched a live-streamed suicide online. They knew what they were doing, Lori says now, her voice steady in a way only grief can harden. They did it for profit. This was addiction by design. Some call it capitalism. I call it murder. Her words echo through the plaza long after she stopped speaking. The case unfolding inside the courthouse is the first of 9 separate trials in Los Angeles brought by young plaintiffs who say they became addicted to social media as minors and suffered profound harm. The 20-year-old at the center of this trial is referred to in court as Kaley GM. Her lawyers argue she began using Instagram at 9 years old, developing compulsive habits that fed negative body image, anxiety, and depression. 2 companies, TikTok and Snapchat, have already reached settlements. That leaves Meta, which owns Facebook and Instagram, and Google, as remaining defendants. When Zuckerberg entered the courtroom, flanked by bodyguards, the spectacle drew as much attention as the substance. So many members of the public wanted to attend that the court held a lottery for seats in the gallery. Raffle tickets were drawn. Some bereaved parents who had flown across the country were turned away, left to wait outside while legal arguments unfolded within. Power has rarely looked so contained. For years, Zuckerberg has testified before Congress, navigated press conferences, and weathered scandals from behind corporate fortifications. But here, there were no lobbyists whispering strategy mid-session, no curated stagecraft, just a wooden witness stand and 12 jurors. Kaley GM sat directly in his line of sight as he testified. He did not look at her. The plaintiff's attorney, Mark Lanier, projected internal company documents onto 3 courtroom screens. One memo from 2018 read, "If we want to win big with teens, we must bring them in as tweens. We have definitively established tweens as the highest retention age group in the